I've got to talk about Trudeau. There's no avoiding that, is there? So as the information trickles out to the public and the latest Trudeau debacle, there's so many, and it's becoming evident how unhinged and desperate the Prime Minister's becoming. Every move made by Trudeau in the last year, I mean, everything he's tried has just made him sink more deeply in the polls. It just seems impossible for the Liberals to maintain even a minority government if they were going to go into an election, much less, regain a majority. And it appears that Trudeau's gotten to the point of fabricating a scenario in his mind where Mark Carney would join his team as finance minister, and his presence alone would turn around the fortunes of the party. Unfortunately for Trudeau, Carney hasn't signed on with this fantasy, and when Trudeau fired Chrystia Freeland to make room for Carney, things really blew up. And the heartless arrogance and vanity on the part of Trudeau was breathtaking in his treatment of former finance minister Chrystia Freeland. I mean, love or hate Freeland, I'm not a big fan of hers, but still, it's undeniable. She's proven herself a loyal member of Trudeau's team. We assume she earned a modicum of respect from the Prime Minister. Even when Trudeau proposed the most absurd policies, Freeland would stand behind him with her head bobbling in a frenetic way of support, wired as usual. She offered modest resistance to some of Trudeau's spending increases, but still, she would back down, and until the federal budget, the deficit had ballooned to a staggering $62 billion. Freeland was still willing to stand in the House of Commons and deliver that terrible budget update. She would take one more for the team, yet again. That is, until Trudeau fired her. Trudeau didn't even have the grace to speak to her face-to-face when he turfed her from her role, though they were in the same city. He did it through a Zoom meeting. Cowardice right to the end. It's surprising he didn't do it through a text message. Trudeau didn't just fire Freeland, though. He expected her to deliver that humiliating budget update as her final act in the role. He threw Freeland under the bus and left her with a weekend to stew over it. That's where Trudeau went beyond being just heartless and into where he went into idiocy. He's so full of himself, it never occurred to him that Freeland had a breaking point. He felt he could treat her with contempt and cast her aside. She would simply take it on the chin due to her unquestioning adoration of him. Instead, Trudeau had unwittingly pushed Freeland over the edge. Who knows when Freeland decided to push back? Maybe it was during the Zoom call, or maybe it was over the weekend when she had time to think about it. The open letter she crafted in her resignation, though, was designed in time to inflict maximum damage to Trudeau's leadership, and it worked. Freeland posted the resignation letter just hours before she was supposed to deliver that turd of a financial update, leaving Trudeau in shock and causing a full political storm. She was also scathing of Trudeau on the way out. The shallowness of Trudeau's plan, though, was quickly exposed when it was realized he didn't even have a person to replace Freeland. Yeah, freedom's not in his vocabulary. He had to go through multiple MPs before finding a member loyal enough or foolish enough to take on the role. That person's Dominic LeBlanc, who was rushed into office and has awkwardly assumed the role. So what happened to Carney? I mean, at first I kind of thought, well, Carney was probably set to assume the role the following Wednesday, but it backed away when seeing how everything turned into a mess. Now, no, it's being leaked that Carney wasn't even consulted. He didn't commit to taking that role, even though Trudeau told Freeland that he was going to. The scenario was apparently a creation of Trudeau's imagination. Carney, he couldn't turn the Liberal Party around, whether he's finance minister or leader anyways. The rot's gotten too deep for that. Whatever Carney might be, he's not a fool. Why on earth would he give up a respected career to jump on with Trudeau's crippled administration? Who would want to be handed the poison chalice of leading the Liberals after Trudeau? The next leader of the Liberals is more likely to see an electoral fate akin to that of Kim Campbell rather than the still humiliating electoral loss of Michael Ignatieff. The party's going to be in the political wilderness for at least an electoral cycle. With his caucus finally going into rebellion somewhat, and even the Toronto Star calling for Trudeau's resignation, the Prime Minister's office suddenly canceled all its year-end interviews. It was assumed he'd finally read the writing on the wall, or somebody read it for him, perhaps. Alas, though, it isn't to be. Trudeau arrived at the annual Christmas party for the Liberals full of smiles and delivered a speech acting as if nothing had happened. Members in attendance were mortified with Trudeau's clear disconnect with reality. Meanwhile, Chrystia Freeland showed up and garnered a hero's welcome at the event, what might be the unofficial beginning of a leadership bid. The only person who doesn't seem to understand Trudeau's finish is Trudeau. Unfortunately, the mechanisms to remove an unwilling prime minister are pretty limited in Canada's system. The Liberal caucus can force the issue, but they got to find some balls, guys. And they haven't shown it yet. It's becoming clearer by the day, though, that Trudeau won't leave until a boot is pushed firmly on his butt. His competence has always been questionable, but now it's his sanity. He must be removed for the sake of Canada. It's way overdue.